problem. Given that y of t which is equal to 1 by 2 epsilon into t minus epsilon to t plus epsilon x of alpha d alpha, where x of t is a WSS process. Prove that SYY of omega which is equal to sine square epsilon omega by epsilon square omega square SXX of omega. So given y of t is equal to 1 by 2 epsilon integral t minus epsilon to t plus epsilon x of alpha d alpha, that is y of t which is equal to integral t minus epsilon to t plus epsilon divided by 1 by 2 epsilon x of alpha d alpha. That is equation number 1. Take alpha is equal to t minus u, d alpha which is equal to minus du, right? Limits when alpha is equal to t minus epsilon, t minus u becomes t minus epsilon. This implies u is equal to epsilon. Alpha is equal to t plus epsilon, t minus u is equal to t plus epsilon. This implies u is equal to minus epsilon. So 1 implies y of t which is equal to integral epsilon to minus epsilon 1 by 2 epsilon x of t minus u into minus du. We are replacing everything. Is equal to changing the limit of the integral. So minus become plus, right? Integral minus epsilon to plus epsilon 1 by 2 epsilon x of t minus u du. That is equation number 2. We know that y of t which is equal to integral minus infinite to plus infinite h of u x of t minus u du. That is equation number 3. Comparing 2 and 3, we will get h of u is equal to 1 by 2 epsilon if u is lies between minus epsilon to plus epsilon, because the integral limit is minus epsilon to plus epsilon, right? Therefore h of u which is equal to 1 by 2 epsilon if u lies between minus epsilon to plus epsilon, 0 otherwise. That is equation number 4. Now h of omega which is equal to Fourier transform of h of t, right? Impulse response, Fourier transform of impulse response, which is equal to integral minus infinite to plus infinite h of t e power minus I omega t dt. That is equal to, we are splitting the integral into 3 parts, right? So first minus infinite to minus epsilon limit. So integral minus infinite to minus epsilon, in that h of u equal to 0. So 0 dt. Next plus minus epsilon to plus epsilon. In that limit h of u is nothing but 1 by 2 epsilon. From equation number 4 I am taking, right? E power minus I omega t dt plus integral plus epsilon to infinite h of u is 0 again into dt. So integrating, you will get e power minus I omega t by minus I omega. We know e power minus a integral e power minus ax dx is equal to e power minus ax by minus a, right? Same, right? So we are using that formula 1 by 2 epsilon e power minus omega t by minus I omega minus epsilon plus epsilon, lower limit upper limit. Applying lower and upper limit and taking minus I omega outside, so you will get minus 1 by 2 I omega epsilon. Applying the upper limit e power minus I omega epsilon minus e power minus omega minus epsilon. Instead of t, we are replacing lower and upper limits. This is equal to 1 by omega epsilon. So we are grouping e power minus, we are taking the e power minus I omega into minus I omega. It will become e power plus I omega epsilon. I am writing that in front of that. Taking minus outside, so you are having already one minus outside, so minus into minus plus, so 1 by omega epsilon e power I omega epsilon minus e power minus omega epsilon by 2i. We know e power I omega epsilon minus e power minus I omega epsilon 2i, which is equal to sine omega epsilon, replacing h of omega which is equal to 1 by omega epsilon sine omega epsilon. Now h star, that is conjugate of h. So conjugate of h, that is nothing but 1 by omega epsilon sine omega epsilon, because there is no imaginary part. So only h of omega is having only real part. So same will come for h star of omega, that is conjugate of h omega. We know h omega square, modulus h omega square is equal to h multiplying both, so 1 by epsilon omega sine omega epsilon by 1 by omega epsilon sine omega epsilon. You will get h modulus h omega square is equal to 1 by omega square epsilon square sine square omega epsilon. That is equation number 7. We know power spectrum SYY omega, which is equal to modulus h omega square into SXX of omega. Substituting the value of h omega square, you will get 1 by omega epsilon square sine square omega epsilon sine XX omega, which is to be proved. Thanks. We'll see you in the next video.